Hey everyone, welcome back to Xana Heroes Forge. So today I'm going to be showing you how to apply a rust effect to 3 different models for Warhammer 40k. This effect can be applied to any tabletop board game though, or anything you choose to paint. So I'm going to be showing you on 3 different types of models. We've got a Ketafron Destroyer from the Adeptus Mechanicus, and as well as some scatter terrain and some larger terrain. It's probably the quickest detail you can apply to any model. It only requires 2 paints, and we'll be using 2 Citadel paints for this, which is Typhus Corrosion and Rise of Rust. It is on the more expensive side for a technical add-on to your models, but it makes all the difference. So we are going to cut to just the miniature in view, and then we will continue with the guides. With everything else out of the way, we can start on the Ketafron Destroyer. To start with, we're going to apply Typhus Corrosion onto the metal details we want rust. Obviously, like with a lot of things, sometimes less is more. Additional note, don't use a nice new brush, use an old one. So I'm going to be using an old Citadel base brush, because as you can see it has had a hell of a beating painting my armies up. So, really depends how much you want. An additional thing to note is that Typhus Corrosion is a texture paint, so it will leave a bit of a detail, so a bit of a rough area. So I'm just going to apply it where I think it would fit. It's going to be along the treads here and in amongst all the inner workings of the treads. I'm going to try and get some on the edge of this as well. I'm going to come to the top and apply some more there. As well as by here, there's also a few other metal details where you might want to put some rust on, such as the exhausts at the back here. I'm going to put a bit less here, because I think this will see more focus on being cleaned. Otherwise the servitor's not going to be going anywhere. As well as around the gun here. Now the end of the barrel doesn't make a lot of sense, but on these small little details here, or on the servitor arm, might look a bit nicer. So we're going to cut back once the Typhus Corrosion is dried and applied over the rest of the miniature. And there we are, with the Rise of Rust applied. You can see it's really brought out the rust colour and texture on this. Now, as I said, you can really apply as much or as little to this as you want. I've applied quite a heavy amount. As to me, these servitors have been serving the Mechanicum for centuries. And on the harsh conditions where these are applied, no metals last too long. Obviously, it's entirely up to you. If you've got your models based on a jungle planet or something of the sorts, it's likely you'll have heavier rust. Now we're going to move on to the next piece of terrain, and now we are going to paint the small little scatter terrain. As I said, you know, with scatter terrain and any terrain, it really depends on the climate you're going to have these in. So, since most of mine take place in most of my battles take place in a snowy environment, or as the Hive Fleet name suggests, a tundra, I'm not going to be applying a huge amount. But I will be applying it in the most logical places, such as around the tap at the bottom here, and around the edges where it might leak. And I'm also going to apply some around the rim of the lid here. Give that time to dry, and then we will come back. With the Typhus Corrosion now applied, we can move on to our dry brushing of Rise of Rust. As shown before, you're going to want to get a small amount on your brush and then wipe away any extras on kitchen roll or tissue paper, and then just begin dry brushing it over where you place the Typhus Corrosion. Can we put this on as heavily as you want, or as light? And I've tried to apply this in the areas where you would expect to find rust the most, so such as on the top of the lid here, which are going to be hit with the rain the most, around the opening of the container, on the top, around the bottom, and dripping from the edges and rims around the sides. We'll come back once that's done. The riser rust now applied, our oil barrel is now complete. And now move on to the next piece of terrain. Moving on, we're going to do the last model for this tutorial, which is going to be this armoured container. Now, realistically, the best places to apply this would be along the bottom of the miniature, as well as on these golden eagle heads. These are probably some of the easiest places to get it. You really just want to think logically about where the rust would gather. So along the top of the model and on the bottom. So I'm also going to apply some along here, on this, and perhaps a little bit along here. Not a massive amount, but it's going to make the model look drastically different. Also going to put some of these metal details on the skulls here, just a bit, as well as in these little vents. And following some of the rivets by here. As well as in this little ridge down here if I can get it. I'll cut back once that's done. And now with the surface corrosion dried, we're ready to apply the riser rust. As shown in the last tutorial, this is going to be a dry brush. So what you want to do is get a small amount on your brush and then wipe it away on a piece of kitchen roll or blue hand towel, something like that. Just leaving a small amount on the bristles. And then we're going to apply it to the areas we've applied the surface corrosion. And it will start catching on the texture detail. You can apply as much or as little as you like at this stage. It really depends on how much you want on the miniature. So we'll come back once it's finished. And with the riser rust applied, the armoured container is now finished. And that has been the tutorial on how to apply a rust effect to your miniatures. I hope you find this useful, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.